we are going to go ahead and get started. I've got 6 different things that we're going to go over today. The first one is going to be being able to process up to 100,000 item transactions at a time. So prior to this update, many of you would have been familiar that the most you could have processed in any one transaction was 1,000 items at a time. All right. In fact, many of you may think, hey, I could only do 10 at a time or 100 at a time because you didn't know how to manipulate the menus to show more. But now you can show 1,000 items, or you can transact 100,000 items at a time. So let me show you how to do that. We're going to go in and do a search, and I'm going to go search items. And this is a really basic search. And there's 2 things that are required to transact 100,000 items at a time. Number 1, the transaction must include the item status on it. So I'm going to say I want a list of all items that are checked in, and secondarily, you can only have up to 1 office at a time in the in the search. So I've only got 1 office listed here. If you happen to be somebody with multiple offices, you're going to have to get rid of all of them except the 1 office. And then when I do that, I'm going to go down and just do a search and see how many items come back on this. In my particular site, I have 847 items that show up for this transaction. So the new 100,000 search is when you don't go over here and select anything, you'll see this new menu option up here at the top. This is the transaction for up to 100,000 items at a time. The minute you check any one item, that menu goes away, and now you're dealing with the transaction menu that you're used to. All right. So that's a big thing right there. Keep in mind, you can do the transactions on up to 100,000 as long as you don't select any items in the list. The minute you do that, you're going back to your normal transaction menu. So in this case, I'm not going to select anything. If I were to go up here and say, I want to dispose, it's going to run me through a disposal transaction. And if I were to do it and hit OK, it will take all 847 items and dispose of them. I could run a search of up to 100,000 items and perform that same transaction. So this is something that is really important. I don't know that many of you will be doing transactions on 100,000 items at a time, but it's not unnormal that you may do a couple of thousand items at a time. And the real frustration was in the previous version of the system is you had to go in and select even up to 1,000 items at a time. Now you don't even have to select anything. You just bring up the list, go up, do a transaction, run it, and you're off and running. Okay, so I think the big trick to keep in mind, and I'm going to repeat it one more time, and then that'll be it. Once you select an item in the list, that large transaction option goes away, and now you're dealing with your normal action menu. In fact, you'll notice the averse to that is if I haven't selected anything, these option menus aren't available. So it's one or the other. Okay. So now the question, so I'm starting to get questions in, and it says, or can you report on 100,000 items at a time? No, this is only for producing transactions of up to 100,000 at a time. In fact, what I would suggest to you is, unless you need to do a transaction of more than 1,000 items, you'll probably never use this option. So you still have the option. You'll notice on my screen here, I'm viewing 1 to 25 of 847 total items. If I wanted to run a report on all 847 items, I would flip it into my large display view. By the way, some of you may not even know this button exists, large view. This allows me to bring up to 1,000 items at a time on my screen. So as the question is being asked, if I want to report on 100,000 items, you can't do that. You can only run reports on up to 1,000 items at a time, because to run reports, you have to select items, and you can only have up to 1,000 in a display. So that's important to note. The mass transaction on 100,000 items is transactions. Check in, check out, dispose, move. Those are transactions. So, but you can report on up to 1,000 items at a time. If you need to run a report on 5,000 items, you're going to have to run through 5 screens and select all 1,000 items to do that. All right. So Other questions coming in. If I want to destroy all 2019 items in bin 51H, let me see here, but it says, but I have to keep items in that bin. Can that be done in transaction search results? I would say, especially, you're telling me you want to destroy the items. I believe that that is a transaction at that point. So yes, if you're trying to do a transaction like that, you'll simply go back up to your search parameters. You still have to select checked in, but probably what I would do in your case is I would type in bin 51H and I would say, let me see, for 2019, I would go up and probably put created date is between, and I would put my date range on it. So you're still getting a search. Again, keep in mind, I don't want to overcomplicate this. Most of this is just running your normal search and then doing something that you couldn't do before, which is run transactions on 100,000 items at a time. The next thing is, does this feature work on a large amount of individual items that you scan? So in that case, I don't believe that that would work there. If you go to the scan page, I don't even know what the maximum number of scans are that you could do on this page. I mean, I certainly would think that you could view 1,000 items at a time on here, and so you could run a transaction on 1,000 items. But no, you would not be able to scan 100,000 items and then do a transaction on that. I don't know who would want to scan 100,000 items anyways. So in that case, when you're using a scanner, you can do 1,000 items at a time. All right, so I guess the person that asked about disposing of all the 2019 items from a specific bin, it said, but I can't exclude any items from that bin. You're right, and when you go in and do a search, if we go back to my search screen, in reality, whatever is coming up in the results, you're doing the transaction on everything in that result set. So if I go back here and say, get back to my 800 and something items, I do want to turn large view off. By the way, I tell that to people all the time. Don't leave that large view button on, because the way that thing is designed is it brings up 1,000 items on the screen. I don't want to see all 847 items. I just want to produce a transaction on 847 items. So you're right, Sandy. You can't exclude anything from that list because there's no way to select or deselect. So the only way you could exclude things would be, I would almost say, I would probably go through and tag items, and then I would run a search based on items that are checked in and tagged with a particular tag. That way you could run the mass transaction on those, and you don't have to start excluding things at that point in time. Those are really good questions on that. I never really thought about some of the complexity of that. But yeah, Sandy said, yeah, she's doing that with tags right now. I think for anybody on here that uses tags, and hopefully everybody here is using tags. If you don't know what tags are, you need to learn about tags. You definitely need to show up to one of our training classes. But if you're using tags, running a search that says, give me every item that's checked in with this tag, that's going to be a perfect example of where here's 3,000 items I need to do something with, and you can run them in one single transaction versus 3 separate ones. I'm going to move on to the next one. And the next one I really, really like. So the problem we have in today's world, I'm going to bring up a case that I already created earlier today. And so I've got a case in here that has one item, and this item is $100 in currency. All right. And I want to split out one of the $20 bills that makes up that currency. So the problem that we had prior to this update that I'm about to show you is when you split out an item, you had to go back into the parent item and manipulate the properties of that, because if you're splitting things out of an item, the parent needs to be modified because it's been manipulated. So, it was a real pain in the butt to do your split, and then somebody had to remember to go back into the parent and edit it and change all the parameters. Well, now we have built something to where when you split an item, if there are quantity values involved in the parent, we can now do a transaction and automatically update that. And what I mean by quantities, I'm talking about number fields. So like this works with currency, it works with drugs when you're talking about the amount of drugs. It does not work with text fields, because I cannot, if somebody were to write $100 bill into a text field, I cannot, with any reliance, manipulate that text in order to make it to be what it needs to be. So we're only talking about number fields that can be manipulated. So the first things you have to do in order to get this to work is I have to go into settings organization, go to forms and field settings up at the top, and then go to item split configuration. The item split configuration is the new area that we created to allow this to be done, okay? And so for the purpose of this demo, I'm gonna remove all these fields out of it. So for most of you, in fact, what I would do if you're considering doing this, just watch it now, go back and do it again later. There's documentation. I'll put this on YouTube out there so you can watch it later. Don't try to do it right now, all right? So go to settings organization, fields and forms settings, go to the item split configuration tab, and then when you hit the drop down, it's gonna show every one of your custom fields that has a number field inside of it. So for me, I've got a currency form and a drug form that have number fields in them. So when I select the currency form, it allows me to say which fields do I want to take place in this programming effort. I'm going to say all fields, because if you could pull a quantity of any one of these values out of the parent and it should recalculate it. And so I'm going to select all of them, and just to finish it out, I'm going to go in and say, hey, I also want to put all of my drug fields inside of here too. So by going in and turning on all of these fields, what that means is when I go in to do a split, if the parent item is any one of these types of the forms or the fields, it's going to bring up the new field that I'm about to show you. Okay, so stick with me here for just a moment. Let's go back now and bring up that case. I'm going to bring up the one item that's inside that case, and we're going to do a split on it. And we're going to go down and say, I want to do a split. Because it's currency, the parent is currency, it's now going to pop up this menu. This menu is the new thing that got created. So this is where I can start to manipulate the parent variables while I'm still creating the new item. So it's telling me, hey, the parent description is $100 in cash. Do you want to manipulate that? And I'm going to say, yep, I do want to do that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it $20 in cash. I'm going to take out 4, and as you scroll down this screen here, you can see that the parent item has 5 $20 bills on it. I'm going to split out 4 of them. So by putting in the new quantity for the new item in here, it's automatically calculating, oh, well, hey, that's going to take the parent down to 1 item. Now, let's say, well, let's do this a little different, because let's say I just want to pull out 1 $20 bill. Let's switch that to be that. So now when I go through and do this and go down to the bottom and say, yep, there's no more manipulation of any other fields, I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to finish out the split item. The new item is going to be a $20 bill. In fact, here you can see this is about to become item 1.1. It's from the parent. I'm simply changing the values that are going to be changed in there. It automatically calculated the new quantities because I did that on that last screen. And now when I hit save and view all items in the case, when I go back to view these items, now look, the parent item is 80, the child item is 20, and I did not have to go back into that parent to make that manipulation. So that would be the same way with drugs. If you're splitting a drug and you're saying, hey, I'm pulling 3 grams of this substance out of a 10-gram parent, it will automatically allow you to recalculate that so that you don't have to go back in and do the parent item again. Okay, so new item is item 1.1. It is $20 in cash. I can see the parent is $80. And I believe, like anything else, if you go in and look at the history, you'll see where when I did this split right here, it took out the variables out of that parent. So it's still logging everything. You can see it went from $100 in cash down to $80 in cash. The primary difference here, and it might be minor, you did not have to go in and manipulate that parent. It automatically did it in the creation of the new item. Okay. So anyway, somebody asked the question, so are we unable to split a credit card from a wallet using this process? So no, you can still do the split of a credit card out of the wallet, but the difference is you're not typically manipulating any quantity fields at that point, because your wallet is not going to have a custom form that said, hey, how many credit cards are in this wallet? And you're answering 4, and then I'm pulling 1 out to where I'm manipulating that. So you absolutely can manipulate that, but I will say in that case, it's not going to introduce that menu where it changes the parent. So I guess maybe that's what you were probably trying to get at, Chris, and asking, or Sandy, and asking that question. Can I still manipulate the parent variable even if there are no quantity fields? And Sandy is confirming. See, sometimes I have to run around the lap a couple of times to get to what people are asking. And so, I don't know an answer to that. I think in reality, that menu only pops if there's a quantity field involved. I'm going to make a note of that and ask about that, because I do agree, even if there are no quantity fields, I still want to manipulate the parent variable. I believe that got brought up. So I'm going to have to check on that and get back to you. I don't know that answer. That's a very good question. Max, who is out there listening, Max with Tracker Projects, can you write that down as one of the things I need to go back and check on later?
Yep, done.
Please. Okay. So somebody is asking the question, why would you split drugs, only taking a portion of an original amount to the lab? I'm not sure I totally understand that question. I mean, I think people split drugs all the time. If because let's say I have a pound of marijuana, I don't need to send an entire pound of marijuana off to the lab for testing. I might take a portion of that out of it. So Chris, who was asking that question, maybe if you could elaborate that on a little bit more. I'm not quite sure what you're getting at on that. All right, so somebody asked the question, can we turn off this feature? As a matter of fact, if you don't go into settings organization and go to forms and fields and go to item split, if you don't turn any of these configuration options on, which much to the chagrin of Sandy, who brought up that other example, it will not pop that menu up and there will be nothing going on. So if you do not want to do it with the auto adjustment of the currency fields or the drug, just don't turn anything on, which is probably the way it is in your system right now, and it will not do anything. So that's a good one. So Chris asked the question, why would you split money? I don't know. I'm sure somebody could come up with a really awesome answer as to why I split money. I'm thinking, maybe somebody here, maybe I'll give you an example. This may be really off the wall, but what if somebody put in $100 in currency and you later found out a portion of that was counterfeit currency, but they put it in as a full item. And so now I'm going to split part of that money out in order just to separate it, because now I want counterfeit to be separate from a regular item. So yeah, in fact, somebody threw that out. There's an example. They threw out counterfeit, and somebody else threw out contaminated with a drug. So yeah, you bring these in and all of a sudden you find, yes, which I would think if one piece of currency was contaminated with a drug, I would assume they're all contaminated with a drug. But yep, there's multiple examples right there. Somebody else threw out, just to overwhelm you, Chris, with examples of where this would be applicable. And they're rolling in, by the way. I'm getting all sorts. I can't read all these out, but lots of people are giving me examples. I'll throw one more out. A court order requires you to split them into different amounts for different people. So there's another one. So yeah, somebody else threw court splits. So Chris, there are a lot of examples where you would do splitting of currency or drugs, whether it's going to lab or court or whatever else. So, hey, thanks for throwing that out there. All right, let me see. Somebody asked a question, can you restrict that on certain users? I don't believe that the splitting functionality is something that you can limit to a specific type of user. So in reality, if you go into this item split configuration page and you go in and say, hey, yeah, I want to turn this on for these types of fields, anybody that does a split, it's going to pop up and do that. But I might also suggest, I think this is something that it really aids in the splitting process. So if it's good for one, I would think it's good for everybody. But that might be up to you. Now, somebody else did throw out that you can restrict it based on permission levels as to who can update items. I believe splitting does require the ability to update an item. So if somebody doesn't have the ability to update an item, they can't do a split. I'm not totally sure if that's a factual statement. I think that is a factual statement. Okay, somebody has double confirmed that that is a factual statement. You can only split items if you have the ability to update those. So if your general officers don't have the ability to update items, they won't be able to do splits, and none of this will come into play. All right. All right. Somebody is asking what I think is going to be a more complicated question, but let me read it. Is there a way to exclude a custom field from being copied over when we split an item? We have one field that we don't want copied when we split an item. People are always forgetting to change it, and it can cause issues. I'm wondering. So the answer to that is, Marie, there is no way to prevent that right now. I think that's a really good suggestion. I think that we could put in maybe a setting somewhere where you could say, hey, when somebody does a split, I don't want a particular field copied. So I'll write that down, or Max will write that down as a note, and we can toss that in the development queue somewhere. That seems like that would be doable. So thank you for asking that question. Okay. Wow, I thought I was going to blow right through all of these and there wouldn't be any questions or comments, and here we are. I'm getting all sorts of feedback, which is really, really good. All right, let me move on to something that's a little more simplistic, but it as simple as it may be, it may generate a lot of conversation. And that is the new case search global search feature that we built into the new system. And before you start throwing it into the question window, I want to let you know we're about to roll out another update on this that's going to make a minor alteration that I think is going to fix this for a lot of people. So let me show you what global search is, and I'll tell you the feedback we got, and then I'll tell you the fix we're going to do. So the global search, in fact, most of you would be aware that prior to this update, in the top right-hand corner of the screen, there was a case type, a case lookup option. So when you began to type in, like, say, 23-1, or let me do 23 dash, it would bring back a list of cases that had 23 dash in it, and it was a type ahead, and it would allow you to go in and say, okay, yep, that's the case that I'm looking for, and I could click on it and it would take me into that case. But that is the only thing that that field in the top right hand corner did. Was it was a case lookup. So it was an easier way than going into search and typing in a case number and bringing it up that way. Okay. The new global search allows us to type in the same variables, but now it will automatically kick off what is the new global search, which when you click off the global search, it searches 9 different areas of the system for that value, not just a case number. So you can see when I type in 23 dash and I click on the global search option, it's not only bringing back any case that has 23 dash in it, but it also has any items that have 23 dash, or any people or check-ins or checkouts or disposals or transfers or tasks, or even media. So, now it's searching a lot more data across the system to get you something that you're looking for. And I always tell people when we get into this area, at this point, this is very different than going to item search over on the left, because the item search on the left, you're stringing together multiple variables and drilling down. This is ultimately looking for a needle in the haystack. But if I type in something like Ben and I hit enter, it's going to come back and search for Ben across all these different systems. And in the case of like cases, it found 143 different cases that had the word Ben in it. At this point in time, the search parameters are so broad, I don't want to sit here and scroll through, because we only display 10 at a time on this screen. And you'll notice there's no transactions, there's no reports from here. This entire thing was designed to give you a quick look into these different areas of the system. All right. So if I get 143 results, it's too broad. All right. I need to type in parameters that are going to allow me to drill down a little bit more. And you'll see, even when I get down to items, there's 793. At this point, it is a needle in a haystack. I'm not going to find what I'm looking for. I got to be far more specific with my search parameters. All right. Somebody asked a question, does it search notes? Not yet. That's about to come out. I don't know if it's coming out in the next update, but it's coming out very soon. So the notes will be a part of all of these search results also. Okay. Somebody asked, can you type in either a last name or a date of birth? So what I would tell you to do is test all these things, all right? This thing is still early in its development cycle, but you should be able to type in somebody's last name and it'll come back with people. In fact, you can see I've got a Jack Marshall in the system. And so there's Jack Marshall right there, all right? And so it is not going to search. It does search across some custom fields. Somebody asked a question, will it do custom fields? Yes, but I would check on those things. And I would also check on the date of birth, because I don't know that you're going to be able to just go up here and type in 131 2005. I don't believe it's advanced enough to where it's going to pick up a date of birth and bring that back. I might be wrong on that, but you could test some of these different parameters and see what it's doing. Okay. Now, here's the problem that people didn't like when this came out. All right. This global search is going to be fantastic for people that work in the evidence room. Your officers are probably generally just still going to look at it for the case lookup. And so we got a lot of feedback from people, probably this feature more than anything else, where they didn't like the fact that it didn't default to the case lookup and it defaulted to the global search. People by and large want it to default to the case search. So here's the middle ground that we came up with in the update that we're about to roll out. Okay, we are in agreement with it defaulting to a case lookup, but the minute you type up enough parameters at the top to where there are no cases found, it will then go to a global search. So for those of you that are in the evidence room and you love this new feature and you're used to it defaulting to the global search, the change that's coming out is it's going to default to the case lookup until there are no lookup options here, then it will default to the global search. I think that's going to fix it for the case or the officers that are just simply, because what your officers are doing is they're going in, they're typing in 23-, they're just hitting enter, and it's bringing up this new global search, and then they're having to view the case, and it's just an extra click or two for them, and there's a lot of complaints coming back. So we're going to make that change. I think that'll make it better for everybody else, because I believe, I think I'm going to say this and it's correct. If you're typing in a parameter and you are looking for a case, you're going to want it to default to the case. And then if you type in something more like, marijuana, then you're going to want it to go to the global search, because that's going to be more indicative of what you're trying to bring back. All right, so somebody asked the question, said, I would like to have only items show as results. You can actually do that. If in the menu you click on that word global search down at the bottom, you can say, I only want items to come back in this. So by doing that, now when you type in 23-1 and you do a global search, it's only going to bring back. Now, that didn't save. That's interesting. I thought that would have saved. I may have to look at that as a bug, because this global search should automatically stick, not just for the search you're doing. So so Sandy, that's how you would do it. That is a bug. Nobody's ever brought that up. I didn't notice that. Those global search parameters should stick once you type that in. Somebody's asking the question, will global search be available on the mobile app? I will say yes to that, but it is not there right now. So that will be coming. Typically, the mobile device is going to lag behind the web UI. It just always does. Okay. So somebody asked the question, if from the global search, can we select an item and run a report? The only way you can do that is to pick the item and go into this screen, and then you can do it from inside here. So in order for this global search, and it may sound simplistic, and you may ask the question, well, why can I not do it from this screen? Okay. When you're searching across the entire system for variables like this, we had to really, it's almost like taking a plane off, back in World War II days where they had to take a plane off to go long distances and they had bombs on there. Man, they got rid of everything else. The seats had to go, the seat belts went, man, if it wasn't required to fly the plane and it wasn't gas or a bomb, it wasn't going to be on there. That's the same thing with this. In order to search across the entire system, we had to limit it to where it was only 10 results per section, and we had to get rid of all the menus and all the customization and everything else. We needed this thing to come back with results real quick. Okay, so actually somebody threw out they would want those parameters. That might be a good question to vote on right now. I'm going to throw that out to everybody before I run that up the chain to make somebody is actually saying right now they would rather these parameters reset every time instead of them sticking like what I was suggesting. So I will ask you, for everybody that's on this phone, what do you want? Do you want that to reset after every search, or do you want it to stick so that it just automatically does it every time? The one thing I would say, Dana, who brought that up, the reason I would say is you're going to know on the screen when you go back and do a search, you'll see I'm only looking at items. So that's probably going to be your reminder that it does that. So I'll tell you right now, I'm going to go ahead and make a call. They're starting to come in. This will be a 50-50 vote. There's no doubt this is going to be it. If 30 people vote, I'm going to put it right now. This will be 15-15. I'm telling you right now, I can tell by the results, I'm getting 50-50 on this. So I'm not sure what to do about that. I will write that down. I think the resets are winning right now. There are a lot of people saying they want them to stick, but I think that the resets are a little ahead. So, hey, Max, are you seeing this? Is this a 50-50 split, or is it just me?
It's pretty close to right down the middle so far.
I
Yep.
was going to say, and I've gotten at least 40 responses right now. So welcome to the world of development. Nobody is ever happy. You can't win any of these battles. Yeah, I've got people putting in their LOLs. Yeah, this falls under the category damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do you guys ever feel like that in your worlds? Like just some days it does not matter what you do, you can't win. So what I will do is we will talk about it. As it stands today, for everybody that wants it to reset, congratulations, you have that right now. So it is funny to see all these responses. Oh man, this is good. Of course, now what I've done is cluttered up my question window so that if anybody put a question in there, I got to dig through all these. So, yep. I'm getting a lot of feedback on my damned if you do, damned if you don't. A lot of people feel that way every day. So, all right, we'll write that down and we'll check into that. Thank you for all that feedback on that. I felt like right there, I just asked the family, where do you want to go for dinner? Like, what are you going to do with that? Like, everybody wants something different. And then I always wind up, fine, we're just going to do it the way I want to do it. I hope you guys are all having fun. I'm having a lot of fun with this. All right. Let's move on to the next one because I did not expect to go this long, but this is a lot of fun here today. Let's get into expungement. All right. And so some time ago, we rolled out a feature. In fact, I'm going to bring up this case right here that I was working with earlier. And inside this case, I have Jack Marshall. All right. And so not too long ago, we rolled out a feature where you could expunge people out of the system. All right. And so if I went in here and put in a court order and a court date and a judge, it would take everything that's known about Jack Marshall and it would wipe that data clean. And if you remember from a previous webinar, I'm not going to dig into all this today, but one of the things I mentioned earlier, when you go in and do that expungement, it not only removes all the current data on that person, it removes everything historically on that person. Jack Marshall will no longer exist in the system, including all the logging records. It gets rid of everything. All right. But one of the problems people pointed out was if Jack Marshall belonged to multiple cases, it was expunging him out of every case, and they didn't want that. So let me show you what we've done. I'm going to click on Jack Marshall's name, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the screen, and you can see right now Jack Marshall is involved in 3 different cases right now. This case right here, this one, and the one that I was in. All right, word of warning. You are able to do, I think, hold on here. I thought I could do an expunge from this screen. Maybe it's hold on, let me go in, let me do it a different way. I'm going to go in here and do a search for Jack Marshall. All right. And I think his name's got 2 L's on it. Yes. Okay. Word of warning. If you do a search for Jack Marshall and you do an expunge from this screen, he will be expunged out of the entire system in every case. The update that we just rolled out now allows you to expunge him from within the case, and it will only expunge him in this case. In fact, the warning up at the top says he's going to be removed from this case. So if I go in now and say, yep, I want to expunge Jack Marshall, I'm going to put my court record in, I'm going to put the date in, Judge Bob, and I hit OK, we still get our warning, hey, this is not reversible, we're going to expunge it. I click OK. We can now see Jack Marshall is out of, I mean, he's still in the case. I mean, he's not. There is a record that something was in the case, but he's been expunged. The difference is now, because I expunged him from inside the case, if I go back and do a search for Jack, or here, let's go up here and type in Marshall in my handy dandy new global search window. And now I'm going to go down to people and click on Jack Marshall now. By the way, that was a cool, I could go up there and type in Marshall in my quick search, and now it was one less click to get to where I needed to be. Now you'll see he is involved in 2 cases. There is no reference from him in that 3rd case. So that's the big update. Now you you can expunge a person out of a single case instead of across the entire system. Okay. Somebody asked a question. If there was a transaction on your chain of custody that involved this expunged person, does the name still show up on the chain of custody? I believe the answer to that is they are expunged everywhere. Their name is not going to exist, but I would want to test that. I really would want to test that out and make sure that that statement is correct. Because Dana, I'm not totally sure about that. So Dana asked that question. Max, can you throw that down as one of the questions I need to get back with people on? We'll have a list of everybody that showed up to the webinar today. I will send everybody these questions and then the answers after I find them out. So I'll find that out for you, Dana.
Yep, add it to the list.
Yeah, somebody asked the question, and I will tell you, I do know the answer to this. When you do that expungement, if the name of that person is in the name of a media file, or if it's inside of a note, it does not expunge that. All right, we don't just go throughout the system looking for any instance of the name of that person. We're looking for very specific data, including first name, last name, and we're only expunging that person data. So that's why I might lean toward my answer being for Dana. No, it is not expunging them on the transaction, and I don't think that it would. Now, should it? That I don't know. The reason we don't do it out of notes or media is because we don't tie that name of that person in that text field to that specific person. So we don't just go throughout the system and do that. Okay, what about chain of custody notes? I would say no. Any notes like that, it is not going to expunge any of that data. Because again, from our side, just going in and looking at note fields and text strings, man, that is impossible to work with. So it's not going to do that. I'm certain of that. Okay, I'll get back to the answer on the other one and get with you on that. Will the court order number come up in the case info? Yeah, so Dave, yes, that court order number will come up inside your case info when you and I actually think now you're putting me on the spot. Where does that come up with? I know it's in there somewhere. I don't know where that's listed at. Max, write that one down to the court order one. I need to find out where does it list that court order information at, because I don't know.
Okay.
This is a lot of fun. There was a day and time I knew every answer to everything, and this shows you how far removed I am from all of these things, that I don't know every answer to everything anymore. It allows me to keep my humility in play. I can't get too proud on this side because I don't know everything about everything. Okay. All right. I think that's everything on that one. We're coming down to the bottom here. The next thing I want to show you is the Soundex Searches. And these things are pretty cool too. So I'm going to go in and search for people. And the Soundex is only available under business name, first name, middle name, and last name. And you've got this new option of sounds like, okay? So let me give you an example. I'm going to go in and say, I want a list of every name that sounds like Marshall. Now, earlier you'll notice, and I did it accidentally, that I typed in this and I got no results because his last name had 2 L's on it. When you do the sounds like, it's going to give you some very close options as to what could be involved in that. So for example, I've got a Jack Marshall, Marshelle. And so this thing was good enough to realize, well, hey, maybe this is a variation of A. And so it, you know, a better example might be Gonzalez. Like, how many different ways can you spell Gonzalez? I mean, there's at least multiple ways to spell it. And so by doing this Soundex search, you're going to get things that are a little more not specific. Now, again, by default, that it won't do that. So, all right. So, but keep in mind, when you do search people, you're going to do sound like last name sounds like, middle name sounds like, but by default, keep in mind, default, it's going to give you equals to. So somebody asked the question, like, that's the same as using a percentage. I would agree. Like, if I were to go in and do something like, I think even like, let's watch this. If I just did MARS, let me see what that comes back. Does that bring them up? Okay, so that didn't seem to be enough. And I don't know if putting a percentage on that still didn't come back. So I think you're going to need a little bit more. That one should bring it back. Now that one's surprising. I can't believe that didn't. Oh, see, I'm sitting here doing all of this with that. Like, duh. All right, let's try it now with Mars. So it didn't like Mars. Let's try MARSH. It didn't like that one. How about Marsh? So that's really interesting. I don't know why. Again, I don't know all of the background on how this works, but you can see somehow it didn't like the fact that it was MARSHA, but you know, and I'm certain that you cannot do percentages on these things. I don't think the percentage key is going to work in here. Let's try, instead of sounds like, let's do, I will say, like the percentage here, what I would do is starts with MARSH. That will come back with the Marshalls, because I'm just simply saying, hey, it starts with that. I don't need to put the percentage on there to do that. I mean, there's a lot of variables in here you can play with. Like I could do, I don't know that this is going to bring anything back. Let's do MARSH. I don't think that's going to bring back it did. Look at that. So you got a lot of options over here that are going to let you really use some minute. Yeah, somebody said the contains works well. I would agree. Like if you just type in contains, man, it's going to give you even things that are in the middle of the word. So yeah, some way or another, you're going to get to where you need to be with that. I think the thing about the Soundex is it's going to give you different spellings that are close. Like this one, it came back with MARSHELLE. How it did that, I don't know, but it came back with some things that were close. So those are the Soundex searches. Any other questions? Any last comments? We're coming up to the end of the hour. Yes, somebody asked a question. Will this video be on the YouTube page? Absolutely. I'll have this out here. I don't know if it'll be by the end of the day because we're close to the end of the day, but I will get it on the page. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube page, I'll send out an email to everybody in here. Max, put that down. Make sure I send everybody the link to the YouTube page so that they can subscribe to it, and then you'll just get notifications every time we put something in there.
Okay.
That's another thing I need to do. Okay. So Joseph is asking the question about, is there any training for the org sharing? We have an update getting ready to come out that's going to add some stuff to org sharing. I don't think I'd be too far out of line saying we will probably in about another month, we'll have a webinar on org sharing. So we'll send out an email to everybody. For those of you that are interested in org sharing at all, we'll cover that in the next month. Max, you may want to write that down that I said that out loud.
Got it.
Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions. I'm getting a lot of thank yous and a lot of compliments. I appreciate that. Man, wait till you guys see the auto dispo and some of the task stuff that's getting ready to come out. Wow, you're going to be blown away by some of these things we've got going on. So I'm really looking forward to showing those off to everybody. Okay, I think we're done here, everyone. Thank you very much. You guys have a great day, and thanks for coming. We'll catch you on the next one.